Santa Fe High School. On May 18, 2018, in the quiet town of Santa Fe, Texas, a tragedy unfolded that would shake the nation. Early that morning, 17-year-old Dimitrios Pagortzis arrived at Santa Fe High School armed with a shotgun and a .38 caliber handgun, both stolen from his father. He was dressed in a trench coat, something that had already drawn attention in the days leading up to the incident. Despite the warm weather, Pagortzis had been wearing that heavy coat to school every day for weeks. Classmates noticed, but like many warning signs in similar cases, it was not taken seriously enough to trigger action. Just after 7:30 a.m., during first period, he entered an art classroom and opened fire. What followed was a roughly 30-minute attack in which he moved through different rooms, targeting both students and teachers. By the time law enforcement officers arrived and confronted him, 10 people had been killed and 13 others injured. Among the dead were 8 students and 2 teachers. In a disturbing revelation, investigators later learned that Pagortzis had deliberately spared certain students. He reportedly told police that he liked them and did not want to kill them. After the attack, he surrendered without further resistance and was taken into custody. As authorities continued their investigation, they uncovered even more alarming details. Improvised explosive devices, including pressure cooker bombs and pipe bombs, had been planted around the school. Fortunately, none of them detonated. Pagortzis was charged with capital murder and attempted capital murder. However, due to ongoing concerns about his mental state, he was declared incompetent to stand trial and placed in a maximum security mental health facility where he remains. At the time, the Santa Fe High School shooting was one of the deadliest school shootings in Texas history, a grim title that would later be surpassed 4 years afterward. Oxford High School. Just a few years later, on November 30, 2021, another devastating incident occurred, this time at Oxford High School in Oxford, Michigan. 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley carried out the attack using a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The weapon had been purchased just 4 days earlier by his father, James Crumbley. The day after the purchase, Ethan had gone to a shooting range with his father, treating the gun as a Christmas gift he had requested. On the morning of the attack, a deeply troubling incident occurred at school. A teacher discovered a drawing on Ethan's desk depicting a gun, a bleeding person, and the words, "The thoughts won't stop. Help me." Alarmed, school officials immediately called his parents and held a meeting with them. Despite the seriousness of the warning, Ethan was not taken home. Instead, he remained at school. Just hours later, in the hallway of Oxford High School, he pulled out the handgun and began shooting. Within minutes, 4 students were killed: Justin Schilling, 17, Madison Baldwin, 17, Tate Meyer, 16, and Hannah St. Juliana, 14. 7 others were injured. Like Pagortzis, Ethan surrendered to police without resistance. What followed made this case historically significant. Prosecutors charged both of Ethan's parents with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter each, arguing that they had ignored clear warning signs and allowed their son access to a firearm. This marked an unprecedented legal move in the United States. In 2024, both James and Jennifer Crumbley were found guilty in separate trials and sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison. Ethan Crumbley himself pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, becoming the youngest individual in Michigan history to receive such a sentence. These 2 cases, though separate in time and place, share a chilling similarity: the presence of warning signs that were seen but not acted upon. Red Lake Senior High. On March 21, 2005, a tragic series of events began on the Red Lake Indian Reservation in Minnesota. 16-year-old Jeff Weiss initiated his attack not at a school but at home. That afternoon, he shot and killed his grandfather, Darrell Lucier, a respected tribal police officer, along with Lucier's friend, Missy Dode. After committing the double murder, Weiss took his grandfather's police vehicle and armed himself with 2 firearms before heading toward Red Lake Senior High School, a place he was familiar with as a student. Upon arrival, the violence escalated immediately. At the entrance of the school, Weiss encountered Derek Brunn, a 28-year-old unarmed security guard. Without hesitation, he shot and killed him. He then moved inside, entering classrooms and hallways, firing at students and teachers. Inside the school, he killed 5 students, along with a teacher, Neva Rogers, who was 62 years old. Another student suffered a gunshot wound to the head but survived. The attack created chaos and fear throughout the building as students attempted to hide or escape. When law enforcement arrived, Weiss exchanged gunfire with officers inside an empty classroom. Realizing there was no escape, he ultimately turned the gun on himself. In total, 10 people were killed, including Weiss, and 5 others were injured. As investigators began examining his background, a deeply troubling pattern emerged. Weiss had been struggling with severe mental health issues for years. He had a history of depression and had recently been prescribed a higher dosage of Prozac. Classmates reported that he had endured prolonged bullying, which contributed to his isolation. Even more concerning was his online activity. Weiss had been posting on neo-Nazi websites and had created violent animations and short stories depicting school shootings. These were not hidden behaviors. They existed in plain sight, yet no effective intervention occurred. The Red Lake community responded with grief and unity. Private funerals were held for the victims, and a trust fund was established to support survivors and the families of those who had lost their lives. Northern Illinois University. Just 3 years later, on February 14, 2008, another devastating shooting took place, this time at Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, Illinois. The attacker, 27-year-old Stephen Kazmierczak, did not initially fit the typical profile that many might expect. He had been described by former instructors and colleagues as an exemplary student. He had received academic awards and had even worked at a correctional facility, demonstrating responsibility and competence. However, beneath this outward appearance, significant changes had taken place. In the months leading up to the attack, Kazmierczak had stopped taking his psychiatric medication. Those close to him noticed that he had become increasingly unpredictable and withdrawn. He had also recently ended a relationship without any clear explanation, further signaling emotional instability. On the afternoon of February 14th, Kazmierczak entered Cole Hall, a large lecture auditorium filled with approximately 160 students attending an oceanography class. At around 3:05 p.m., he emerged from behind the stage curtain, armed with 3 handguns and a Remington 12-gauge shotgun. Without warning, he opened fire on the crowded room. As panic spread, students ducked beneath seats or rushed toward exits, trying to escape the chaos. Kazmierczak continued firing as he moved across the stage, directing shots into the audience. The entire attack lasted approximately 2 minutes, but in that short time, irreversible damage had been done. 5 students were killed: Catalina Garcia, 20, Juliana Gaitan, 32, Gail Dubovsky, 20, Ryan Mace, 19, and Daniel Parmenter, 20. 21 others were injured. As police approached, Kazmierczak ended the attack by turning the shotgun on himself. The aftermath led to widespread reflection and policy review. Northern Illinois University canceled classes for a week and held a campus-wide memorial service. In response to the tragedy, Illinois state laws regarding handgun purchases and mental health reporting were re-examined. Cole Hall, where the shooting took place, was eventually demolished and replaced with a new building, an effort to move forward while honoring those who were lost. These incidents reveal a recurring pattern: individuals who were struggling internally, often showing signs of distress or behavioral change, but whose situations did not receive the level of intervention needed to prevent catastrophe. Umpqua Community College. On October 1, 2015, at Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon, a carefully planned and deeply disturbing attack took place. The perpetrator, 26-year-old Christopher Harper Mercer, had enrolled in a writing course held in Snyder Hall. On that day, he arrived carrying multiple weapons, including 6 firearms, extra magazines, and wearing a flak jacket. At approximately 10:38 a.m., Mercer began the attack by shooting and killing his instructor, 67-year-old Lawrence Levine. From there, the situation escalated rapidly. He ordered students to lie on the ground and began questioning them about their religion. Witnesses later reported that Mercer specifically targeted individuals who identified as Christians. He allegedly told them they would see God in 1 second before shooting them. However, not all victims were selected based solely on religion. Others were also shot during the attack. By the time law enforcement officers from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office arrived and engaged him in a shootout, 9 people had been killed and 9 others injured. The victims ranged in age from 18 to 67. During the confrontation with police in a hallway outside the classroom, Mercer was wounded. Shortly afterward, he took his own life. Investigators later discovered that 13 firearms were connected to Mercer, all of which had been legally obtained either by him or his family members. He had no prior criminal record, making the attack even more difficult to predict through traditional law enforcement measures. However, there were warning signs. The night before the shooting, Mercer had posted online expressing admiration for previous mass shooters. His digital footprint revealed a strong and concerning interest in past mass killings. Additionally, he had a history of mental health issues and had previously attended a school designed for children with emotional and behavioral disorders. Following the tragedy, Umpqua Community College was closed for 2 weeks before reopening. To this day, the attack remains the deadliest mass shooting in Oregon's history. Oikos University. 3 years earlier, on April 2, 2012, another shooting shocked the nation, this time at Oikos University, a small Korean Christian college in Oakland, California. The attacker, 43-year-old Won Go, had once been a student at the institution, enrolled in a nursing program. However, he had been expelled months before the attack due to behavioral issues and ongoing disputes over a tuition refund. Driven by anger and resentment, Go returned to the campus armed with a .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol. His primary intention was to locate a specific administrator, whom he blamed for his expulsion. When he failed to find her, the situation turned violent. He forced a receptionist, 53-year-old Kathleen Alberto, into a classroom at gunpoint and shot her. He then ordered students to line up against the wall and proceeded to shoot them one by one as he moved through the building. The attack resulted in 7 deaths and 3 injuries. With the exception of Alberto, all of the victims were students. After leaving the campus, Go drove away, making several stops. Eventually, a bystander reported suspicious behavior at a nearby grocery store. Police responded and arrested him in the parking lot without incident. During questioning, Go admitted that he had planned the attack for several weeks and had specifically intended to kill the administrator he blamed. He was charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder. After years of legal proceedings, during which he was twice found mentally fit to stand trial, he entered a no-contest plea and, in 2017, was sentenced to 7 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. University of Texas Tower. Decades earlier, on August 1, 1966, one of the first major mass campus shootings in U.S. history occurred at the University of Texas in Austin. The perpetrator, 25-year-old Charles Whitman, began his day by committing 2 murders at home. He killed his mother, Margaret, in her apartment, and later returned to kill his wife, Kathy, while she slept. In notes left behind, Whitman expressed confusion about his own violent impulses and requested that his brain be studied after his death. Later that morning, Whitman arrived on the University of Texas campus carrying a footlocker filled with supplies, including food, water, ammunition, and multiple firearms. He made his way to the main tower and ascended to the observation deck on the 27th floor. At approximately 11:48 a.m., he began firing at people on the campus below and in the surrounding streets. His elevated position and long-range accuracy created widespread panic, forcing people to take cover while others attempted to assist the wounded. The attack continued for 96 minutes, during which Whitman engaged in gunfire with civilians and police. At around 1:24 p.m., officers Houston McCoy and Ramiro Martinez reached the observation deck and shot Whitman, ending the attack. The final toll included 14 people killed that day. In 2001, another victim who had been injured during the attack died from complications, raising the total death count to 17, including Whitman's mother and wife. Additionally, 31 people were injured. The University of Texas Tower shooting became a turning point in American law enforcement history. It directly influenced the creation of specialized police units, including the first SWAT teams, designed to respond to such high-risk situations. Columbine High School. On April 20, 1999, one of the most influential and widely remembered school shootings in modern history took place at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado. The attackers, 18-year-old Eric Harris and 17-year-old Dylan Klebold, arrived early in the morning armed with firearms and homemade explosives. Their original plan was even more devastating than what ultimately occurred. They had placed 2 propane tank bombs in the school cafeteria, intending for them to detonate during the busiest lunch period. However, when the bombs failed to explode, they shifted to a direct shooting attack. They retrieved additional weapons from their cars and began by shooting outside the school near the west entrance, killing 2 students. They then entered the building and made their way toward the library, where the majority of the killings occurred. Over the course of approximately 49 minutes, Harris and Klebold killed 12 students and 1 teacher, Dave Sanders, who had been helping students escape. Another 21 people were injured. After moving through different areas of the school, the attackers returned to the library where they ended their lives using their own firearms. Investigations later revealed that the attack had been planned for over a year. The perpetrators had documented their plans through journals, recorded videos, and written notes. Both had previously been involved in a criminal incident involving a car break-in, which led to their participation in a court-ordered diversion program. The Columbine shooting had a profound and lasting impact. It reshaped school security measures across the United States and changed how law enforcement agencies respond to active shooter situations. It also influenced numerous future attackers, many of whom referenced Columbine directly. Marjory Stoneman Douglas. Nearly 2 decades later, on February 14, 2018, another devastating shooting occurred at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. The attacker, 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, had been expelled from the school the previous year due to behavioral issues. On the day of the attack, he arrived via a ride-sharing service carrying an AR-15-style semi-automatic rifle and multiple loaded magazines. At approximately 2:21 p.m., Cruz entered Building 12 and began firing on the first floor. He then moved to the second and third floors, shooting into classrooms and hallways. In just about 6 minutes, 17 people were killed and 17 others were injured. The victims included 14 students and 3 staff members. After the attack, Cruz dropped his weapon and blended in with fleeing students before leaving the campus. Authorities later used surveillance footage to identify him, and he was arrested about an hour later. The shooting became the deadliest high school shooting in U.S. history. In 2021, Cruz pleaded guilty to all charges, and in 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after a jury did not unanimously agree on the death penalty. The tragedy sparked a powerful youth-led movement known as March for Our Lives, as students across the country organized protests demanding changes to gun laws and school safety policies. Robb Elementary School. On May 24, 2022, another horrific event unfolded at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. 18-year-old Salvador Ramos began by shooting his grandmother at home before driving to the school. At approximately 11:33 a.m., he crashed his vehicle near the campus, exchanged gunfire with responding officers, and entered the building through an unlocked rear door. He moved into 2 connected 4th-grade classrooms and began shooting. For the next 1 hour and 17 minutes, Ramos remained inside while law enforcement officers gathered in the hallway. However, they did not immediately confront him. A commander on the scene mistakenly treated the situation as a barricaded suspect scenario rather than an active shooting. At 12:50 p.m., officers finally entered the classroom and killed Ramos. By that time, 19 children and 2 teachers had been killed, and 17 others were injured. The victims were between 9 and 10 years old. The delayed police response was widely criticized. Multiple investigations later concluded that officers could have acted sooner, potentially saving lives. As a result, 19 officers and officials faced disciplinary action or suspension. The Uvalde shooting became the deadliest school shooting in Texas history. Sandy Hook Elementary. Another deeply tragic event occurred on December 14, 2012, at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. The attacker, 20-year-old Adam Lanza, began by killing his mother at home before driving to the school. Armed with a semi-automatic rifle and handguns, he forced entry into the locked building and proceeded directly to 2 first-grade classrooms. In less than 5 minutes, he killed 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7, along with 6 adult staff members, including the school principal and psychologist. As police arrived, Lanza took his own life. The attack shocked the nation due to the young age of the victims. Investigators later found that Lanza had been intensely focused on past mass shootings and had documented them extensively. The tragedy led to a nationwide debate on gun control, though no major federal legislation was ultimately passed. Virginia Tech. Finally, on April 16, 2007, the deadliest single-perpetrator school shooting in U.S. history occurred at Virginia Tech. The attacker, 23-year-old Sing-Hui Cho, carried out 2 separate attacks on campus. He first killed 2 students in a dormitory early in the morning. Hours later, he entered Norris Hall, chaining the doors shut from the inside, and began moving from classroom to classroom, shooting students and faculty. In approximately 10 minutes, he killed 30 additional people before taking his own life as police breached the building. In total, 32 people were killed and 17 injured. Investigations revealed that Cho had previously been identified as a potential risk due to mental health concerns. However, gaps in the reporting system allowed him to legally purchase firearms. The Virginia Tech tragedy led to significant reforms in background check systems and mental health reporting laws in the United States. The Covenant School. On March 27, 2023, another tragic school shooting occurred at the Covenant School, a private Christian elementary school located in the Green Hills neighborhood of Nashville, Tennessee. The attacker, 28-year-old Audrey Hale, had a personal connection to the institution, having previously attended the school as a student. This detail would later become significant, as investigators uncovered the extent of planning behind the attack. At 9:57 a.m., just minutes before the incident began, Hale sent a direct message to a childhood friend on Instagram stating, "I'm planning to die today." The friend immediately alerted authorities, but the attack had already been set in motion. At approximately 10:10 a.m., Hale arrived at the school armed with multiple weapons, including a handgun, a Kel-Tec Sub-2000, and an AR-15 style rifle. To gain entry, Hale shot through locked glass side doors and entered the building. A school custodian noticed the breach and attempted to respond, but was shot and killed. Hale then moved through hallways and classrooms, firing multiple rounds while advancing through the building and eventually reaching the second floor. The attack was fast but devastating. 6 people were killed. William Kinney, 9, Hallie Scruggs, 9, Evelyn Dykehouse, 9, Cynthia Peake, 61, Catherine Kuhn, 60, Mike Hill, 61. Law enforcement responded quickly. Officers Rex Engelbert and Michael Colazzo entered the building and located Hale on the second floor. Approximately 14 minutes after the initial emergency call, Hale was confronted and shot by police. When Hale attempted to raise a weapon again, additional shots were fired, ending the attack. In total, Hale fired 152 rounds during the incident. As investigators examined the case, they discovered that the attack had been meticulously planned over several years. Evidence recovered from Hale's residence included detailed notebooks, maps of the school, surveillance notes, and step-by-step planning documents outlining entry points and movement inside the building. A 48-page report released by the Metro Nashville Police Department in April 2025 revealed deeper motivations. According to the findings, Hale's primary motive was notoriety. Personal writings indicated a desire to gain attention and surpass previous attackers in scale and impact. Hale had even expressed an intention to kill at least 40 people. Investigators also confirmed that Hale had legally purchased 7 firearms from 5 different gun stores. 3 of those weapons were used in the attack. The report concluded that Hale acted alone, was legally sane at the time, and had spent years preparing for the assault.